feel like this. Only been days, but it feel like months. Been gone for a year, only know like once. Life move fast when you do.
Hey guys, and welcome back to a new video. If you are new here, my name is Celeste and I'm a high school counselor.
I'm Lacey, I'm a middle school teacher, and today we're gonna sit down and do an updated Q&A. I feel like our opinions and our experiences change like every year. A new school year started like a month ago, so we just wanted to share our experiences. And I feel like as we've been filming for like over 2 years, we're getting more comfortable with sharing like our true thoughts and our feelings on everything. So of course we'll keep it professional, but we do want this to be a real and raw Q&A. So grab your popcorn, it's gonna be a good one.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. So the first question is for both of us. What is another career path that you would have chose?
So I feel like we both kind of talked about this before. Like we both love fashion and stuff like that. I don't know about you, but I would love to work with like clothes in some way. I don't know, like maybe putting outfits together, like being a stylist. I don't really necessarily want to design clothes. I'm not creative enough to like, you know, make something from scratch, but it would be cool to be like a stylist, like put outfits together, because I love doing that anyway. So for me, I would think that's what it would be. And I would say if I had to choose something else, then maybe fitness related, like trainer or something like that. So I think those are the two options.
Cool.
Yeah.
So for me, I watched the show called Selling Sunset on Netflix, and that show has inspired me. Like if, you know, something in education does not work for me, I would want to be like a realtor in California only, because it's like so fascinating to watch. And then like they dress really pretty and like they have like fashion, you know, going on. And but yeah, I would want to be a realtor.
I can see that. I would get that from you.
But yeah, I could see myself being a realtor. Yeah, just because I watched that show, and it's just, I don't know, it's fun to watch. Do you watch that show?
I haven't, but it's on Netflix, right?
Yeah, it's on Netflix.
I'll have to look into it.
Yes, Selling Sunset.
So that was the only question not about our jobs. So now we're going to transition into teaching and counseling questions. And the first one actually has to do with our students. One of my friends asked, what skills do Gen Alpha excel in and what do they struggle in? And I had to Google Gen Alpha because who made up these terms?
Right.
I was confused, but that's anyone who was born, I think it's 2010 and after. So my students are literally 14. Hers are a little older, but I still feel like, you know, freshmen are only 1 year older than my 8th graders. So you can still answer that. So
skills that they excel in is just being like flexible. Like I feel like they can adapt to anything. But what they struggle in is like anything dealing with like social skills. And I don't think it's because really, honestly, I honestly just think it's because of social media.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but I feel like they can adapt and change to anything. Like you put them in an environment, I feel like they can, you know, adapt. It may take some time, but they will, you know, adapt to whatever. But just socially, they struggle, and sometimes it's sad to see. But those are, you know, some of the things I feel like they excel and struggle in.
Yeah, and piggybacking off of that, like she said with social media, because technology and phones, iPads, all of that is so popular, I would say a skill is they're very technological savvy. Like they know everything there is to know. They know all the cheat codes, which, you know, is bad and good when it comes to being a teacher.
Yeah.
But they definitely have a lot of technology skills. These kids know so much.
They really do.
For sure. And then I would say for a struggle, I agree with the social skills, but I would also even say they expect things to be accommodated for them, I guess, if that makes sense. Like, oh, I didn't turn this in today, but I know my teacher will take it in 2 weeks.
Right.
Like they just expect a lot more. They kind of expect to like, oh, I didn't do this on time. They're gonna accommodate me, or oh, I didn't do this right, they're gonna let me do it again. So I feel like that mindset is very popular. Do you see that?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I see it all the time.
Yeah.
Especially when I was in the classroom, though. Like I saw it more often then, but outside of the classroom, not so much. But still, they, you know, expect that.
For sure. And I know when I was in school, I never, like, if I failed the test, I failed the test. I'm not gonna beg them for another try, because in real life you can't try things twice.
Nope.
That's not how life works. So
Exactly.
And that actually leads me to your first question. So she mentioned being in the classroom because she was a teacher before.
Oh, boy.
So do you think you would ever be a teacher again?
So I don't think I would ever go back and teach K through 12.
Okay.
If anything, I would like to teach adults. So I would like to be like a college professor part-time or something. Like I could see myself doing that, but I don't think I would go back in the classroom, if that makes sense. Not because I don't want to like teach, students or anything, but I do feel like I would want to explore teaching adults and just having that under my belt. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right, so for your next question, Lacey, how do you deal with behavior?
If you watched my last vlog, I kind of touched on this a little bit, and I actually got this question commented under my last vlog, my week in my life from last week. So that's why I wanted to answer this. I feel like as a teacher, especially like I said, they kind of expect a lot of chances. Naturally, you do give them a lot of chances. I give them verbal warnings. We would have no time to teach if we had to call for every single time we corrected behavior. So I definitely give a whole bunch of warnings. They're kids, they make mistakes. I mean, I try to give grace when I can. But if it's consistent or if it's something with disrespect, for disrespect, I don't play about that. So like if you're talking back to me, and you're trying to go back and forth, that's not something that I do in my classroom. So that's something I try to squash right then and there, and I'll call for that right away. But when it comes to talking, like I said, they're kids, and I try to give plenty of grace. But when I do get to that point, I call parents. Sometimes it's just a call just to let them know, and sometimes it's a call to set up detention. Our school does do detention after school. If it's something major and I need to call the principal, then I'll do that, but that hardly ever happens. Yeah.
And I feel like, anything to make them to remember not to do it again is beneficial. I feel like that it's, memorable.
In this group, it's like, as bad as it sounds, like one of the only things that gets them to respect you or to stop the behavior is embarrassment. And that sounds like terrible to say, but like you have to humble them. And if you don't, then they'll just keep going. And I say that like as serious as possible. Like I'm not trying to be funny. If you're a teacher, you probably understand that like embarrassment is the only thing that takes them down a few notches. And I hate to get to that point, but you guys know, sassy and educated. If I have to be sassy and educated, then sometimes you have to. So that's something I've noticed as I've been teaching for sure. So your next question, we kind of just talked about behavior. Do you still deal with behavior as a counselor and also as a cheer coach?
Yes, I actually do. Not so much as a counselor because my students, like when they come in there, it's most of the time it's for individual. So it's for them. It's not, for behavior as much. There are times where we check in with students who are like behavior or are a behavior problem. So sometimes we will have that, but I don't like deal with discipline like that because that's more so an administrator. But as a cheer coach, absolutely, because I coach teenage girls.
Need you say more?
Like, shall I say more? But yes, I love my girls, but I will treat them as if they were one of my daughters. And so whatever it takes to teach them lessons, life lessons, and I always tell them it's more than cheer. It's more than, cheer. I'm trying to teach you life skills as well. But I have supportive parents, and so that makes it, a lot easier. And so, yes, sometimes it is a struggle, but they're teenage girls, and
That's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's
and
a lot.
I have how many? I have 23 on varsity, and then 16 on JV, so a total of 39 girls. So Lacey, your next question is, what are your thoughts on how education has changed?
So this is my 6th year. I'm only 27, and I do feel like there's been a huge shift. Like my first year of teaching versus now, there's definitely differences. My goal is the same, to teach them language arts, get them ready for Georgia milestones testing. But I do feel like behavior is just getting out of control. Like I know when we were in school, like you always respected your teachers.
Always.
Like your parents did not even play about that at all. So now there's definitely more of a power struggle. I teach 8th grade, they're getting ready for high school. I feel like they try to go back and forth, and Like, I would never try to argue with the teacher when I was in school. And I don't know how we got to this point where they do try to have the last word and final say. I don't yell, I don't scream. Like, I try to be fair, I try to give them grace. And some of them, of course, still will try to argue. So, and that never happened my first year or even my second or third year. I feel like every year behavior gets more and more tough. Teaching ELA is what I love to do. That's easy if I was just teaching, but you spend just as much time disciplining as you do teaching, and that is something that needs to change.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of my thoughts on how education has changed. My next question for you is, do you feel like counseling is a sustainable job for years to come?
Yeah, absolutely. And most of the time I have noticed that women or men who are school counselors, they get in their positions, and most of them retire in the positions that they are in, which is why sometimes it's so hard to find like a school counseling job. But yes, I definitely think this is a job that I want to stay in for years to come because I love it. Like, I enjoy like working with the students and their parents and, you know, bridging the gap. So yeah, absolutely.
You feel like the positives outweigh the negatives? Like, thinking of that word sustainable, like you think you could do this for that long?
Years. Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's because and like I said, like, I really enjoy like what I do, and so yeah, sometimes there are bad things, but the good outweighs the bad, and so that's you know what reminds me of as to why I became a school counselor was to help students, you know, with their mental health and help them figure out, you know, what are they doing after high school, you know, stuff like that. So, and even when students come back and visit and they're like, you know, thank you, Miss Smith, for, you know, talking with me about A, B, and C, or thank you for, you know, being that person while I was here. That's what makes it all worth it, to like just hearing those things. And you don't get those things often, but hearing those things are always good.
Yeah.
And so the next question for you is, do you think teaching is sustainable?
Okay. My answer is kind of loaded because I would say yes and no. Yes, because I love what I do. I love teaching. Again, if teaching was all I did, I would not be so exhausted at the end of the day. I do love what I do, and I don't have like a plan to leave in a certain number of years or anything like that. But 30 years? I don't know about 30 years, because that's like the typical number that you hear when you start education, like you retire after 30 years. And I'm like thinking about how tired I am after work. And again, it's not from the teaching part, it's from behaviors, meetings. Like, I do love teaching. I don't have any plans to leave or anything, but I do think 30 years is a long time. I love being around kids, so I might do something like Celeste did and maybe get a different job in education. I've kind of been thinking about that, but again, I don't have any plans. I do plan on teaching for the foreseeable future, but I don't know how long, you know, that'll be. I definitely think, yes, it is sustainable. I do think teachers can teach for 30 years, but I feel like from my experience, I might want to switch it up and figure out a different role with kids. I have started tutoring on the side, so maybe I can eventually do that more full-time or something like that. So I am starting to explore some other things because I do love pouring into kids, but I do know, like, I'm only 27 and I feel like a grandma. Like, on the weekends, I don't even make plans. I just be at home trying to recover so I'm ready to go back on Monday, fighting for my life. So it is sustainable. Don't get me wrong. If you are studying to be a teacher, of course, that can be your career. And, you know, that is my goal, but I do think eventually, you know, I might try something else. I do not have my master's, so maybe I'll get a master's in something related to education and try something else. And I don't think that's a problem. I don't think that's bad. And I do feel like teachers are talking more about that. Like, I don't know if you're on teacher TikTok, but I see a whole lot of TikToks with a lot of teachers feeling the same thing as me.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like educators in general, like within the last 10 years, have like, you know, shifted or just feel like education has changed. So I don't think it's a bad thing at all, though.
Last question for Celeste is, what does your day-to-day look like? And I know that's probably a very loaded question for a counselor, but if everything went to plan, what would your typical day look like at work?
So, like you just said, if everything went to plan, No 2 days are the same in counseling, and I think that's what I love about it because it's so different every day. But sometimes that can be a little stressful because sometimes I want to go in and get things done and I can't because, priorities and like students have crises and we have to like address those first. But a day to day. So when I first get to work, what I do is I check my emails or try to check my emails. Sometimes I can't do that because I have morning duty. And so I head to morning duty first. And on morning duty, I'm chatting with students, greeting students. This week I had a lot of new students, so in the mornings I spent a lot of times like giving them a tour of the school, making sure they had their schedule, making sure they knew where they were going. So that's what the morning consists of. I also have 504 meetings because like we do 504s as school counselors, so a lot of that happens in the mornings. After that, then I'm able to like sit down and get some stuff done. Right now we are doing something called senior check-ins where we sit down and meet with each one of our seniors individually, and we meet for about 15 minutes and we're asking them questions, helping them prepare for thinking after high school, whether it's applying for college or what they need to prepare for the ASVAB. Whatever their plans are, we sit down and like come up with a plan. And then after that, like that pretty much takes me over until like lunch. So I eat my lunch, and then after lunch is like I do like attendance. So students who have missed 5 or more days, we call them and just make sure they're okay, check in on them. But that's what a typical day looks like. However, stuff happens. Like sometimes students will skip class and I will have to spend an hour and a half looking for that student, calling the parent, hey, I don't know where your student is. Can you please check their location? Or we're checking cameras trying to find a student. So stuff like that happens, or students come up in tears having a panic attack and we're trying to like calm them down and figure out what's going on, and stuff just happens, and sometimes it's random, sometimes it's good. They come up there and like share stuff that's been good, and sometimes it's not so good. But yes, so a typical day is all over the place, but it's good. It feels good sometimes, when you're able to calm a student out of a panic attack, or when you're able to check in on a student and they've not gotten in trouble all week. So stuff like that is good.
Yeah, I feel like it's unpredictable, but in a good way.
Yeah, absolutely. Last question for Lacey is, what is your policy on late work? Lacey, I already know you don't accept late work.
What did I just say about their expectations of me taking stuff 5 weeks late?
Yeah.
So in an ideal world, I would not take late work, and I do work at a magnet school, so the expectations are a little bit higher for the kids because they should be on top of their stuff. So unfortunately, if I did not accept late work, then the grades would not be, looking very good. So I do extend grace and I do take things late. However, I teach 8th grade, they're going to high school. In high school, they're not going to play that. So I am slowly trying to wean them off of that. We had an essay due yesterday, Friday the 13th. It was a 3-paragraph essay. It was our first one. I made it very short, and they started it Tuesday, so they had 4 days. When I tell you those kids were scrambling, and we had 4 days to write 3 paragraphs. Do the math. You could have done 1 paragraph a day. They were scrambling.
Oh,
and they have it in their head like, oh, if I don't finish this, I can do it on my weekend. Oh, Miss Smith will let me do it Monday. Miss Smith will let me do it next week. I closed that assignment Friday at midnight because I said, I'm not going to keep doing that with them. I'm not. Seeing how frantic they were, I'm like, you had 4 days. I don't understand why you're struggling to write 3 paragraphs. So that's an example of me slowly trying to wean them off of that, because that's ridiculous to me.
That is.
It is. So I did close the assignment. I did not plan on closing the assignment. I planned on being my normal self. I'll just take it when they give it to me. And I told myself, because I got frustrated because every single class was scrambling. And I just was like, how did we get to a point in education where it takes the kids a whole week to write 3 paragraphs? Because on standardized testing, they'll have an hour to write a whole essay.
That's right.
So I purposely went slow so I could help them. Of course, I walk around and I help them as the teacher. That's why it took 4 days, but they could have easily, been done. So I do accept it, but I am working on not accepting it as much because in real life they cannot turn stuff in late. I am quite sure on Monday there's gonna be students in my inbox, and I'm thinking this weekend about how I'm gonna respond to that. I need to reflect.
Sometimes they just have to learn, and sometimes it takes learning the hard way.
For sure.
But guys, that's pretty much it for this video. I hope you have enjoyed watching us and listening to our stories and stuff about work. And some of the questions were really interesting to answer. So thank you guys so much for sending in questions for us to answer. And we hope you guys have enjoyed it. And yeah.
Make sure you like this video. Make sure you also talk to us in the comments. Let us know your thoughts on anything that we said, because we love to talk with you guys. I feel like our subscribers have been commenting a lot more lately, and we love that. We check our account every day and we respond to every single comment. Don't forget to also subscribe and share the video, and we will see you in the next one. Bye, guys. That was good. Look at us.